So we're here to solve this XV Sudoku by Ashish Kumar. It only has a few clues, so most of the solve is probably going to use the anti rule, where we can't form a pattern, like we couldn't put a 1 next to this 9 because it would need to have an X clue. But to get started, we'll very much just look at this set down here below. This V clue is in a row with a 4, so it's going to be a 3 with a 2. There's a 3 right here, so 3 is on the left, 2 is on the right. 3 is now part of an X clue. We've got a 3 that's got to come over to the rightmost box, and it can't be at the 7. We have some more digits to place in here. We need to place a 1, but the 1 can't be near the 4 or the 9. And we need to place a 6, and the 6 can't be near the 4, so we've got this. The 2 comes up here, and the 8 comes over here. Just scanning across, I see there's one space left for the 2. Coming into the middle, there's this space for an 8. We've got 2 7s, so 7's going to be in the center box in the bottom. Only this position, because we've got to dodge the 3. Looks like it works. Just still scanning on this row. I need a 5 to come in somewhere in this middle section, and the only place left is here. I now have 1, 6, and 9, and 9 has to be right here, and the 1 has to dodge the 9, so 1 is in this space, 6 is in this space. That's going to clear out these digits pretty quickly. I've got 6 with 9 left for this bottom row. If the 9 were here, 9 and 1 would repeat this space. 9's actually also already in this column, so this is 9, this is 6, this is 4. Off of the X clue. We've got 5 and 8 in the space. Do we know any more? We've got some limited spots. The 6 goes up here. And now I think we're going to have to think through the anti-rule a whole lot as we keep going through the puzzle. The very first thing I think of whenever I place a digit is how does its partner, which has to now dodge it, go into the grid. So a 4 has to dodge 6, so 4 is over here, which means 4 is going to sit right here. We've placed the 4. 4 actually has 2 partners. It's got the 6 as a partner, also has the digit 1 as a partner, so the 1 has to dodge both of these cells because it would otherwise form a V clue. And the 1 has to dodge this cell because it's not next to a 9. So the 1 is here. 5 comes over and forms another clue right here actually. So this will help us pretty quickly. 2 of 5, we get 5 and 8 and 8 and 1. We've got a 7 to finish out the space, and a 7 can't sit next to a 3. And we've got a 7 up here. Okay, let's consider the next sort of set of things. I'm just looking in these middle rows, particularly for digits I can half place over here. So there is an 8 in one of these 2 cells, and there's a 9 in one of these 2 cells. The 9 only has a partner as a 1, and so I do know that a 1 is in one of these 3 cells, but it's not as constrained. This 8 actually looks like it's more useful. Its partner is a 2, and so a 2 isn't in these cells, and a 2 isn't up here either because it's next to a 3. That would be forming a V clue in the grid. So all 3 of these cells are invalid for 2. So the 2 in this column has to be in the cell on the left, and that actually pushes the 8 upwards. The 2 still needs to go somewhere in this box in this 3rd column, and it can't be near this 8. It can't be near this 8, so it's got to be here. We have the remaining set in this row is 4 and 9. Both of these are bad for the 1 to be near, so when I have to place a 1 or a 5 in this space, the 5 is up top, the 1 is down below. So we've got through a lot of the left and bottom spaces by dodging the XV constraint, so let's see how that will continue over here. We've got an 8 in this space, and that's not really doing much for the rest of the row because the 2 is already placed in it. But there's something else that's going on, I think, in this column, and maybe we can also do in this column, which is let's look at what's left over. we have 3, 4, 6, and 8 to place, and the 8 is over here. If a 3 fit into this spot, you'd have 4, 6 left to go, and 4, 6 sums up naturally to 10. So 4, 6 has to have one group in this space, 4 or 6, and the other space here, 4 or 6. And note that 4, 6 is not going to be in this spot. So a 4, 6 is here. The 8 must be in this cell. And then there's a 3 here, and the other partner of 4 or 6 sits in the space. That's a way these constraints work out, just thinking through the XV constraint. That looks like it might also be true in this column. This column has 1, 3, 4, and 7 going on, and so the 3 and 7 need to dodge themselves, and also the 1 and 4 need to dodge themselves. So we'll think through what that means as we actually get some more placements up top. First, I see I've got a lot of 5s in the grid, so let me just mark the remaining spaces a 5 can go. Those now all in my notes have covered all of the 5s. I've got a 7 in one of these cells. I've got, let's see, there's a 6 note to write somewhere here. 6 can be in those cells. That's not so limiting yet. A 2 can't be in this cell, so a 2 is here or here. We have a 3 that goes in one of these 2 cells. And I'm still just scanning to find notes I can be placing into the grid. 8 is up here, and 8 is up here, and it actually looks like these 8s are going to drive the next step of the solve. So notice that a 2 can't be in a cell adjoining this 8, so the 2 in this column is in one of those cells. And one thing I see is I've got an either-or option here, where if I actually took this 7, it would force a 2 up above, and now it forces the 8 up above, and it leaves one cell behind. So this is a pretty constrained column. It has 2, 6, 7, 8 left for it, and so if this is 7 to 8, I'd have to place a 6 right here, and there's a 6 right there. And so knowing that moving a 2 upwards is going to be fairly constraining, I can test and prove that that 7 doesn't go in that spot that I just marked. So it's going to come to the left. This 7 forces this 3 to the right, and that now leaves behind just a 4 and 6 for this row, dodging the 6 that's right there for it. Coming up here, we've got a 1 and 3 left in this column. The 3 is up above just based on the eliminations. These ones come across. This 3 comes across. A 7 is in one of those cells. A 6 is here, and a 1 is here. This 3 is now touching a cell that used to be potentially a 2. This now can't be a 2 and can't be a 2 because they've got to dodge the XV. So this is the 2, 6, 1. The 6 is up here. We have 2, 4, and 9. But the 2 has to dodge this 3. So 2, 9, and 4 like that. 4 makes this 4 and 5. And just following the notes across. We have a 4 in one of these cells. Left over here is a 6 and a 6. And coming up and across, there's one spot left for a 9, which is right there. If a 9 is in these cells, that means the 1 can't be in these 2 cells. So the 1 is on the far right over here, and based on this elimination, that's a 1, that's a 1. This 9 dodges below. We get 9 with 4. Coming across 4 and 7 and 2. This 4 is going to come up here and move a 3 and a 6 like shown. 6 comes over here, 6, 8, 7 coming down. The 8 pushes the 8 up. Last 2 digits are 7 and 2. And we finished this tough puzzle. It had a fairly constrained solving path. It was very much working along the bottom and left edge, avoiding the XV touching spaces everywhere there weren't clues. So for instance, once a 4 was in one of these cells, the 1 has to be away from it, and indeed even has to stay away from this 9. Once we have a case where we had an 8 in one of these two cells, the 2 had to avoid all 3 of these and come down here. That got us into this middle space. We ended up getting a row like this row where we had 4, 6 alongside 3 and 8, but the fact that an 8 was in the cell meant both 4 and 6 had to split apart. And so we actually saw the cell as being a pretty interesting cell that had to be a 4 or 6. Stuff like that got us through the grid. So hopefully in going through this, you learn a little bit about the anti-constraints that can be true in some of these Sudoku variations. We'll see you again soon.